Hi, students. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. So I came across somebody actually sent me this video, and I saw it, and it's really something that we all need to see because this man really came all out to speak nothing but the truth. I still do not trust anybody, but I am going to talk based on the video that you all are going to watch. And it happened that a black woman sent him a mail, right, telling them that black people have been through it all. Like it's like just like something that has been happening to us for 400 years, and did it stop? Of course, it did not stop that. They all voted against their own interest, and think it's only black people that will suffer it. Literally, everybody is going to suffer it. But I mean, it's not like black people. You all already know. I am not. Black people are resistant to so many things, especially when it comes to things like this. So I know that black people are going to survive, but some of them may not survive, right? And now he was also talking about how they voted against their own neighbors and their friends and all that. And some people will be deported, why some people their right to be taking away women and all that, right, for this and all that, right? And also, I love the fact that he pushed that, but the people that he is advocating for, that is the Latinos, right? Did they think of all that? Did they think of all that before voting for who they voted for? Because they felt like proximity to whiteness has made them white. You know what? Let's get into this.
My friend, Reverend Dr. Ben Boswell, was recently forced to resign from his pastorate at the progressive Myers Park Baptist Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, after giving this sermon following the re-election of Donald Trump, where he preached and spoke out against MAGA fascism and tried to inspire hope and try to mobilize people to resist. The full sermon is 23 minutes long. It's on YouTube. I encourage you to go watch it. I've edited it down to about 12 minutes, which is a lot for TikTok, but I hope you'll watch this all the way to the end. These are just the highlights, the stuff that I found really inspiring and interesting and encouraging. There's a little tribute to the late Tony Campolo, who recently died, at the very end. Thanks for watching. Be inspired. Don't do nothing. Mobilize, build, resist.
We need time now to grieve, to cover our mirrors, to rend our garments, to sit in sackcloth and ashes, to scream, to weep, to mourn, to howl at the moon if necessary. But as we grieve, we must remember Paul's words from 1 Thessalonians 4. Yes, we are people who grieve, but we do not grieve as people who have no hope. You may not know this, but there is only one democratic election in all of Scripture. It was hosted by Pontius Pilate in Jerusalem, where he gave the crowd a choice of who they would elect to pardon: Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Barabbas. It was a choice between two versions of the Jewish religion, two viewpoints of the empire, two valleys by which to travel, two visions of salvation and the future. But fundamentally, if you look carefully, it was the choice between a healer from Galilee and an extremist who led an insurrection at the Capitol where people were murdered. That's the choice. And the crowd chose Barabbas. It's a choice we are now very familiar with. This week was not the first time the crowd has made a perilous and misguided choice. One of the reasons we grieve today is because we've been told quite clearly that the election of Donald Trump will lead to the crucifixion of people we love. It will lead to the crucifixion of immigrant families, women in need of reproductive rights, transgender and non-binary people, sick people in need of health care, government workers clinging to a job, poor people in need of resources. And so we grieve today with our entire body for those who we love. But our faith also teaches us something else. It teaches us that every crucifixion needs a witness. This week on Instagram, an Episcopal priest named Joseph Yu said something that really got me thinking. He said, the Jesus movement has always been most effective, most captivating, most contagious, most powerful, most transformative under the rule of the empire. That's when we're at our best. So keep that in mind as we move forward, he said, and let's cause some damage to this empire with the tools that we've been given of sacrificial love and generosity and forgiveness and grace and hope and love. Hope may be frail, but it's hard to kill. Erik Larson's best-selling book, In the Garden of Beasts, begins, I have always wondered what it would have been like to witness firsthand the gathering dark of Hitler's rule. Hindsight tells us, he writes, that during that fragile time, history could have been changed and gone in a different direction. Why then did no one seek to change it? Why did it take so long to recognize the real danger that Hitler and the Nazi regime posed? The answer is that few were able or willing to fully recognize the threat that Hitler posed, including the American ambassador in Berlin at the time, William Dodd, who brought his family to Berlin in 1933. Throughout that first year, Larson writes, Dodd was struck by the strange indifference to atrocity that had settled over the nation, the willingness of everyday people and moderate elements within the government to accept each new oppressive decree, each new act of violence without protest. And yet the ambassador resigned himself to, in his own words, the delicate work of watching and carefully doing nothing. Whether from self-preservation or self-delusion, people increasingly failed to challenge what they knew to be lies and propaganda and allowed themselves to be swept up in a creeping morass of ignorance and barbarity. They failed to condemn the bigotry and the cruelty that they could hear in the political rhetoric every day and saw happening on the streets. And so the terrifying conclusion that one reaches when reading Larson's book is that vigilance, honesty, and courage on the part of many inside and outside of Germany during those early years could have stopped Hitler and that fascist regime in its tracks. But without vigilance, we surrender our integrity slowly, by degrees. Before long, we discover we've lost everything important to us, including what defined us as human beings or as Christians, like our faith and our freedom. But there were also brave people at that same time who witnessed what was taking place and resisted the rise of fascism from the very beginning. One of the most famous was a theologian who lived in Berlin at the exact same time as Ambassador Dodd, named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Hitler was elected chancellor on January 30th, 1933. And just 2 days after Hitler took power on February 1st, Bonhoeffer delivered a radio address publicly criticizing the Nazi Party and their concept of the Führer, or supreme leader, which was what Hitler was calling himself back then. And Bonhoeffer asked, to what extent does leading and being led become pathological? He warned his fellow Germans that a leader who makes themselves an idol is a misleader who mocks God. And those who concede their power to a strong man or supreme leader promoting the rebirth of a nation will eventually be destroyed by him. But the radio broadcast, no surprise, was abruptly cut off by the Nazis before Bonhoeffer could complete his speech. Bonhoeffer was the first to recognize that Hitler's policies against the Jews were a problem for the church and an empirically political one. A month after his radio address, not even 2 months into Hitler's leadership, Bonhoeffer published an essay titled The Church and the Jewish Question, where he claimed that National Socialism was an illegitimate form of government that had to be opposed on Christian grounds. Bonhoeffer outlined 3 stages of opposition in that early writing. First, that the church is always called to question state injustice. Second, that it has an obligation to help all the victims of state injustice, whether they are Christian or not. And finally, if the state's actions lead to a lack of rights and disorder, the church is called to jam a spoke in the wheel of the state and bring the machinery of injustice to a halt. A year later, in the summer of 34, Bonhoeffer pressed his fellow pastors by proclaiming, "We are immediately faced with a decision. Are we National Socialist or are we Christian?" because Christianity stands or falls with its revolutionary protest against violence, arbitrariness, pride of power, with its plea for the weak and the vulnerable. After being arrested and imprisoned on April 9th, 1945, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was marched naked to the gallows at the Flossenburg concentration camp. He was 39 years old, and the camp where he was killed was liberated by Allied forces only a few weeks later. From 1933 to the day that he died, Bonhoeffer bravely and openly opposed Hitler and the Nazi regime. He once wrote, "As much as the Christian would like to remain distant from the political struggle, the commandment to love urges us to stand up for our neighbors. Our faith must always know when the dictates of the state may lead us against our conscience." A good friend of this church, Dr. Bill Leonard, and many others in our community have described the crisis we face today as a Bonhoeffer moment. And I agree. But we should be very precise about what we mean by this phrase. What we mean is that fascism has swept in with the wind, and our nation has elected a man who openly describes himself as a dictator. But Bonhoeffer is more than a description. The question is not just, is this a Bonhoeffer moment? But how will we respond to this moment? Will we be like Ambassador Dodd or Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Will we do the delicate work of watching and carefully doing nothing? Or will we stand up, speak the truth, witness against injustice, help all the victims, and jam a spoke into the machinery of empire? Christians are not the only people wrestling with this question today. Politicians, government workers, leaders in every area of society and industry are grappling with the way the winds blew this Tuesday, including journalists in this country. And on the morning after the election, Jesse Eisinger, a senior editor at ProPublica, delivered these words to his staff: "We face now the biggest test of our professional lives. Now we get to see if we really meant it when we said we will hold power to account. Will we do so when our subjects have true power on their side and a willingness to use it against us? We may be harassed. We may be sued. We may be threatened with violence. We may be ignored." But then he said, "Are we sunshine journalists, or are we ready?" So a lot of people are asking, where do we go from here? I think a midwife from Wisconsin said it best this week. "You are awakening to the same country you fell asleep to. The very same country. Pull yourself together. And when you see me, do not ask me, what do we do now, or how do we get through the next 4 years? Some of my ancestors," she wrote, "dealt with 400 years of this under worse conditions. So she said, continue to do the good work you're doing. Continue building bridges, continue leading with compassion, continue demanding justice and liberation, continue dismantling broken systems, continue to set the best example you can for the children, continue to be a vessel of nourishing joy, continue right where you are, right where you live. Do it in the name of the Creator who expects nothing less from each and every one of us. And if you are not continuing all of the above in community, in partnership, in collaboration, what is it that you have been doing?" she asks. "And what are you waiting for?" If it's a Bonhoeffer moment, then we need a Bonhoeffer movement. A community of people who know that every crucifixion needs a witness. People who are like the women on Easter, who go to the grave of the crucified looking for a resurrection. People like Bonhoeffer who will stand up and speak out and fight against fascism and fight against injustice, no matter what the cost is. We need people who will cling to each other, who are committed to being vigilant, who will not be silent, who will not give up, who will never surrender, who will love our neighbors, who will refuse to believe that this is the end, who will work for liberation every single day, who will dismantle broken systems, who will pour ourselves out like vessels of joy for other people, people who refuse to be just sunshine Christians, but who want to be cross and resurrection Christians, people who know that to truly follow Jesus, we have to hold on to our hope for dear life. Because while it may feel like Friday right now, while it might feel like Saturday right now, Sunday is coming, and we have to believe that.
Don't ever call me a person of color. I'm black. The overarching term person of color or POC has always been null and void in America because there is white America, Black America, and then everyone else. And you find that the other people under the umbrella POC are just as anti-Black as white people. I put up a conversation on Threads talking about Latinos and how they voted for Trump and how they're voting against their own self-best interests, and they think that aligning with the white is right, white American people in this country will save them. And they're learning very quickly that Trump is inputting all these policies and wants to enlist the US military to start the mass deportation progress. And I made a simple comment and I said, don't look to Black people for allies. And he said, don't look to us for allies. And I said, first of all, Black people have never looked to anyone else in this country for allyship, because this country has always been a Black and white space, and you guys are the in-between new people. And that's just the reality of race relations and the makeup of this country politically and socioeconomically. Even though Black people in this country experience racism, classism, oppression, and we have done since our inception in this country, white people know that Black people are American. So we're never other. We're never going to be deported. We're never going to be somewhere else. They're not looking to us to say, oh, we're the other. Black people are never the brunt of immigration problems because we are inherently American and they know we are American. So when I say don't look to Black people for allyship, it's in the form of us fighting for civil rights for ourselves continuously since the 50s, and you benefiting from those rights. You benefiting from the ability to come into this country and have a closer proximity and adjacentness to whiteness, because we are the ones that fought for immigration. We're the ones that fought for non-white people to have rights, bank accounts, homes, vote, the list goes on. And per America and how they have a certain disdain for Black people, when the civil rights movement happened and when the mass influx of immigrants happened, when massive amounts of Cuban immigrants came to America, do you know Cubans were given loans? Cubans were given preferred jobs. Cubans were given business loans to start businesses. Why do you think Miami is so heavily Cuban? And why Cubans have been so successful is that in spite of Black Americans that have always existed in Miami, the government gave Cubans preferential treatment in starting the development of Miami. It wasn't because they preferred you. It was because we'll rather give anything to someone who isn't Black than give the power to Black people who recently just got rights under the law. So, like I said, while you may think proximity to whiteness will help your cause or will help your place in this country, you will always be seen as other. You will always be seen as Indian, Mexican, Asian. You will never be seen as American, because in the heart of the conservatives and liberals and Democrats and everybody white in this country, they know that white Anglo-Saxon people and African-American people, descendants of slaves, are American. Take that in for what you will. I hope you and your family have the life you deserve after voting for a man who does not have your best interests at heart. And check the fact that you guys think that white proximity is correct, when you will never be seen as white in this country, and you will never be seen as American in this country. Ciao.
I don't know who said it, but it bears repeating. Y'all don't hate white supremacy enough. Y'all don't hate oppression enough. Y'all don't hate the disenfranchising of your communities enough. You don't hate genocide enough. And I know why that is. It's because a lot of you, not all of you, but a lot of you, specifically those who are running around now that the election is over and giving their 2 cents about what went wrong, even though they worked on the campaign and they didn't try to do anything different, is that those people don't actually care about the tragedies that are happening in this country, especially to vulnerable communities. They just care about their proximity to power to prevent them from being a victim to those tragedies, which is why they're not pushing to do anything differently in 4 years, because they know they're going to be paid regardless, right? These consultants, these advisors, these senior advisors, they're going to get paid regardless. And so they're gaslighting all of us by going around on these podcasts and making it believe like we're the issue, we're the problem, even though they set the standards for the campaign. They saw the data. They understood that the data was telling them that they needed to go in a different direction, and still they chose down that pathway to losing. Even if that loss potentially drove America closer and closer to a fascist society.
So this is all I got from this video, and I really do hope that they enjoy their white proximity because, as you can see, they are feeling good and also feeling like they are this. Because if you know what they are going through now, some of them are already very scared. Very, very scared, but it's still white proximity. Enjoy it. All right, let's get into the real video. The man that made the video, I really love his video. And the person that wrote him that letter is a Black woman, because if you listen very well, you definitely will hear what she said. We have suffered this for 400 years, right? And they are not even bothered. They are not scared that they are not scared. Actually, Black people are not scared. And they are no longer, before, Black people used to be worried about other people, right? But not anymore. I mean, they are now, they face their fear and all that. So it is left for you people to buckle up. I love the fact that he was able to tell them that you all are going to see people get hurt. People in your around you. But the reality is that if you love people around you, you definitely would have voted right. They do not love people around them. And these are the things some people, especially those that think that their proximity to whiteness already made them white, they have refused to understand that because you look closer to them, or because you've been with them, because you rap with them and all that, does not mean that they care about you. They do not care about you. Now, let me tell you something. When people care about you, first of all, they are going to put you first, right? In anything they do. But I do not see any of them putting you first. That was one of the reasons why you all messed up and think that somebody will come and clean your mess. Nobody is cleaning your mess. You all are going to sleep in that mess as long as it's going to last, right? Now I love the fact that he pushed this in front of his own people, because some of these people have refused to understand that what they are doing, or they knew what they did, because majority of them, when you look around, some of them are trying and looking for a way to justify what they did, which means they knew that what they did wasn't good. So they are looking for a way to make it look like, we have to justify what we did and all of that. But the end will justify the means, because some of them, if they are not worried, I see a lot of them running helter skelter. If they are not worried, I won't be seeing the most searched, like Google, like, how do I take back my vote? You cannot take back your vote. Deal with it. Now, Black people have been on you, or Black people did not just, or have not only been fighting for themselves. They literally fought for themselves and fight for every other person. But in the end, you also will see that nobody cares about us, about Black people. Now, I see after the election, I saw a lot of them running around. How do I make things right for you? There is no way you can make things right, because if you wanted to make things right, you would have done it from the onset. So forget that you're blood bracelet. Forget that we are the good people. Forget that we can do. You all should start from your community and start doing better. I saw a video of a woman saying that I really want to start this deconstruction of a thing, and also get to speak to people about our whiteness and all that. But my parents, my family, they are all conservatives. How do I even speak to them about it? And I don't want to I want to talk to other people, but I don't want to talk to my family. Hey, go and start from your family. Go and start from them, because you cannot say that you want to start the construction. You are not starting with the people that, how am I even sure? How am I supposed to know that you are really deconstructing, or you are just coming online to blab like majority of them did? Why? Because during election, before election, Black people were finding out some people that are not supporting, that are not voting blue. And they were denying it. In the end, they found out that they were right? So one thing I know for sure is that a majority of them will come out and say, I am voting for this, and then they ended up voting for other people. You are also going to come out and tell me, I am supporting you people, or I am standing with you, I am preaching about the construction. In your inner mind, or in your heart, you are not for the people you are talking about. And it keeps happening. One thing is that something will always happen, especially those top influencers. One thing will happen, you find out that they have great disease towards people that look like me. And may our ancestors keep opening the foul ass, so that we keep seeing the people that are for us and the people that are not for us. So this man, he nailed it. But the worst part is that he lost his job, because they already told him to resign. Why would they tell him to resign? Because, I mean, that is not the kind of pushing they expected. They expected people that would tell them, you are going to, they are not taking your rights. Maybe they will take away only black people's right and not take away your, everybody is going through it. See, this tariff that they are going to increase, they are not only going to increase it for black people, it is everybody will experience it. They are not going to, they won't say that for someone like this, or for Latinos, or for Cubans, you are going to buy a gallon of petrol for $1 and black people will buy for $5. It is not going to happen. And the deportation is going to happen. So tell me who is losing. Tell me who is now the king. Now, let me tell you something, because you all think that black people were dumb, right? Do you know who the real boss are? Black people are still the boss till tomorrow. Why? They tried as much as they can to fix things right, but you all said no. You want to continue to see where you are, and you all are going to sit there and see how it plays out. How many days do we even have? Let's say a month and a couple of days. Before we know where it's going on, it's Christmas. Christmas, like, it's going to be very, it's holiday season. It's going to come real fast, and the real drama is going to start. I hope you all are ready, because this is what you all voted for. This is what you all bargained for. Nobody helped you out. You said, this is what I am going to do with my own vote. And you did it. I mean, I cannot wait. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.